Hello and welcome to Geekatplay Studio. My name is Amy Chopin. This is our Discovering View 2nd edition series of tutorials. In this tutorial, we're going to take a look at infinite planes, and we're going to really focus on water because in the last couple of versions of View, we have gotten some really great options with that. So up here at the very top of our left toolbar is where we have infinite planes. If I right click on this and I hover over it, this little plane here that has the little bubbles underneath it, that's what those are, is our water plane. This plane here that has what looks like a plant on top of it, maybe in this kind of brownish, that is our ground plane. Our ground plane is like the infinite ground plane that every scene opens up with by default. And this is a cloud plane. Now we talked about clouds previously, and this is one more way to add some clouds in. If I click on this, it gives me the option to choose a layer of clouds, and then I have the atmosphere editor that I can work with those clouds, because adding a cloud layer is working with your atmospheres. So I'll just X that out, and that will cancel that out because it has added that through the editor. And now what I want to do is add a water infinite plane. Now an infinite plane is going to go all along your scene, all through your scene. No matter where you move your camera, you are going to still see that water. And one other thing I want you to know about infinite planes, both the ground plane and the water plane, you need to have a volume with them, with how the light is working with it and scattering. The volume of the ground and the sea plane, the water plane, is underneath it, infinitely down underneath it, since it spreads out infinitely. And the volume of a cloud plane is going to be above it. So that's how those work. It's a good idea to kind of have that little tidbit in mind there. Now that we have this sea, this water plane in there, there's an ability to work with this in a different kind of an editor, a new editor called Water Surface Options. And here you can control how your water looks like. You can have great ocean scenes and develop them and have any kind of water that you want. Now before I continue, I want to be showing you some things, details in a little bit bigger than what I can show you. Water tends to take a long time to render, and I'll be keeping that at the preview quality, but it tends to take a long time because you have a lot of scattered light, and all of that needs to be calculated while it's rendering. And now I have the geometry. I can work with the surface altitude. It comes in at 1 meter or 100 centimeters, and I can move that up. Now if I click that, it will refresh, and you can see that I've moved it up. I've now moved it above my camera. So I can change a little bit about how that works. And now I've got it just barely below the camera there. And I have something called displaced water surface. Now, I've talked to you before about in the material editor, in the bump tab, if I have a displaced bumps, then that is going to actually change the geometry of the object that I've applied this material to, and this is the same with the water. So if I select that, take a look at this line here. Right now we have this nice straight line in the side view and the front view where we can see that part of the water, and I select this, enable that, and what you're going to see now is that line thickens up, because of course I'm looking at this line from the side, and it's kind of infinite, and it thickens up, and now my camera is once again below the water. I think I want to move my camera up. When I select on my camera while I have an editor open, you see that it actually opens up that editor again. This happens when you select from object to object. So now I've got the camera where I want it, and I select back to the sea, and now I'm above the sea a little bit. And it's hard to see here. Let me increase kind of this, and you can't really see it in the background in the preview. So this is why I want to render something for you. There it is a little bit. Let me show you even bigger. And you can see how much increasing that overall agitation has increased that displacement, that geometry in the water plane. It's no longer a flat plane there. And there you go. There's a bigger picture of that. And you can see how these waves are moving through the water. And that looks very, very good. Even at this preview quality, you can see a lot of motion going on in there. And it's really quite a great thing there. So I was working with this overall agitation in global wave control, which I have enabled. If I were to instead prefer to use these, I would disable that, and now I can work with all of these different characteristics individually, and I can work with the waves and the direction that they're going. And if I change that, that's going to change how that looks, where you're seeing those waves come from. You want to consider this whenever you're especially with animation. They're going to move in a direction. You can have your clouds move in a direction as well, and if you bring ventilators into it, take into consideration how all those interact with each other. So you can choose how many waves you're having and the height of those waves. Now look, I've increased the height by quite a bit, and you should see that in the side view there. And since I increased how many waves they are, we once again have the camera underneath the ocean. So I really need to raise that up a little bit more. There we go. Now, back with my water, we have the wind intensity, agitation, and choppiness, and those are just all different ways of controlling what that looks like, how that looks like. I'm going to move that wind direction back because that about 45 really gave me some interest. And you know, consider where the sun is and where you want your shadows to lie when you're composing an image there. Now we have something called foam along coasts. And I'm going to decrease the height of my waves a little bit. And I'm just going to bring in a terrain. So I click on that. It's opened up the terrain editor. Now I have a terrain and my camera. So let me go ahead and move my camera into there so you can see what's going on. My terrain, as sometimes happens, is also made out of water. I'm going to show you that material in a little bit. So I just want to load a more appropriate material. Here, I'll go to landscapes and I'll choose this grass and rock kind of a thing. Now I'm just slapping this on, and I'm not paying a lot of attention to a lot of details, but I want you to see this. And this is the foam along the coast that you're going to be able to see. Now look around where this terrain meets the water plane. We have this whiteness going. So that's foam along the coasts that you're seeing. Also, there is some whiteness that you can see that just pops up occasionally on the surface of the water. And that is the foam over the waves. And so by increasing that and decreasing that, you can affect another aspect of how your ocean, of how your waterscape is going to look, and see what's more appropriate. Are you working with a little small lake, or are you working with big oceans, and what color it is? Now, I told you I was going to show you that material a little bit. So let's go into here. I'm clicking on loaded material, and I'm in liquids, and I'm in meta waters. In order to get this great water surface options editor that we have, your water needs to be made out of one of these kinds of waters. And these waters basically have a function in them that can be controlled through the water surface options. And that's how you get your control over your water surface. So those are just some things you can do to further enhance your scenes there. I've increased that foam along the coast by quite a bit. And just to get a very great looking, interesting looking scene. Thank you for watching this Geekatplay tutorial. If you have any questions, if you'd like to know more about what we do or about Vue, please visit us on the web at www.geekatplay.com.